Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kishiru, old habits guys, for Mashin Sentai Kiramager episode 4. And I'm getting pretty worried about this show because it's been good for 4 weeks in a row and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, usually this is around the bubble of when the show starts to get into status quo territory, and even if the show stays good, I have no doubt we'll eventually get to that. But usually after they've debuted the core stuff from the first wave of toys, we start getting into like the filler episode bubble of like valueless filler. But who knows, maybe this show will surprise me with that, but it definitely, I feel like it shouldn't worry me. I'm like the only person that would be like, oh man, the show's so good it's worrying me, but I've been enjoying it so much I don't want the other shoe to drop in terms of us returning to Fillerville. And again, I hope once we do, it ends up being still decent. But this was a good episode. It was a kind of a villain focus episode, focusing on Brawhead is what I'm calling her until I learn her name in the penultimate episode of the series. But it kind of focused more on that. And this was sort of the episode where you have those sometimes where the villain and the status quo of the villain makes themselves known to the team. And much like at the beginning, Green and Yellow are just having an argument, and Yellow's like, do you think when Kylo offers Rey his hand for the second time, she'll take it? And Green's like, who cares? And he's like, I do. I do. That all gets interrupted for an attack, which I think is going to be a monster attack, but it's a mysterious gem rectangle cube, very reminiscent of their own. And they're like, WTF, mate? And then it transforms into a dino train, which baffles them, and they try to stop it from basically running into stuff. And they use just the standard vehicles, which, as I mentioned a couple times during the series so far, in the all 4 weeks it's been running, but it's 5 weeks if you count or 5 installments if you count episode 0, but they use, I like the use of like individual mecha, changing it up from just a standard mecha battle. I liked seeing just the regular ones fight against the train. It was kind of nice. And they end up stopping it, and then Garza falls out. And he claims that he's been under basically a spell, and that's why he's been helping them. And he whispers something into Brawhead's ear, which makes her, like, react, basically, which is going to be important later. And while they're all debating whether or not he's telling the truth, she goes into the secret room where she finds this white crystal, which turns out it was a piece of that crystal thing she arrived in episode 0, or the first episode, I don't remember which one it was. But he needs it for some reason, and Yellow and Red both think that it's a trap, but she doesn't want to listen and goes off to meet him. And just as they're about to go stop her or help her or whatever, an actual kaiju monster attacks and they're forced to go in Kiramager. Now, there's a little bit mixed thoughts on this because they're like trapped fighting it. I guess the idea was like, if we go Kiramager all out at the beginning, we'll destroy it and be able to go help her. But I feel like we established in that episode that we don't need all 5 of them together, so it would have been nice to see like Land Mage. Like, they could have done Land Mage and then sent a couple of them off to go help her, but I was about ready to be mad about that and fly off the handle. Not really, but I was about ready to be annoyed by that because I thought this was a Sentai series that actually acknowledged you don't need all 5 people for one task. But then it turns out that Red used the Gemini, which was something I wanted them to bring back. I think I mentioned that in the episode in which it debuted, the idea of them creating other things besides weapons out of these abilities, the Gemini of course being the first, and that not just being a one-off. So he actually made use of it, and Red used the Gemini so he could go help her, because as it turns out, he is indeed a scumbag. He does tell her this story about how he was fighting against the Udon, and the Master Udon showed up and put a spell on him, and now he's yours. That was too much. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, stop. So, that could be a classic case of it's not unheard of for shows to do like a flashback that didn't really happen to trick the audience. But it's also possible that that scene did happen and it wasn't like a spell that took over his mind, and more it was Udon showing him his knowledge of what he could do for him, and he turned in that moment. Because after his villainous plan is revealed, he does a mustache twirling moment and reveals like, oh, well, you know, I was always going to be second fiddle to my brother with our inspirational crafting abilities, but Udon believed in my scrapbooking, so I chose him. And he's like baffled how Red has this ability, and Red obviously knew more that it was a trap because he saw visions of the betrayal in his head, in the first episode or episode 0, again I don't remember which one it was, and like how he was actually taking pleasure in it, and so like it raises more questions about Red, and they fight. It's a pretty cool fight, I thought, and then he gets in his big dino mecha after Kiramager arrives and transforms it into the dino mecha form, which is really cool, and I like how he even comments, is like, check this out, it's even got a chainsaw. And so they're fighting, and then the kaiju shows up, and he's like, you're in my way, and he done blows it up, and they end the fight, and then the episode just kind of ends with Brawhead being appreciative of the Rangers and reaffirming her mission to her promise to her dad. But it was a strong episode. I was a little bit worried they were going to go in the brainwashing direction of Garza. I'm glad they didn't. I think it makes him more interesting. I found this stuff to be interesting, the fact that he does have that sort of crafting ability, and that's how he crafted like his dino mecha, and then it's a kind of a classic case of him being jealous of his brother, which is why he turned. And then they kind of emphasized again why Red has that ability. I mean, it's possible, it's just that people on other planets can have that ability when coming in contact with this like gem technology or whatever. But I think it's going to be something more like he's somehow like half Crystallian or Crystal Methian or whatever they're called. I don't think it would be impossible, given that obviously they have contact with Earth, since her dad was working with the company and the guy that helped make all like their gear and stuff. So it's possible he's even her brother or something like that. I think he's somehow half or quarter of that alien species. I think it'll be something like that. Again, it's not impossible. It could just be like, oh, the, you know, sparkle, creativity, scrapbooking power is with anybody of any race, but I think it'll be a little bit more deep than that, and the fact that they highlight, I think the fact that they highlight it so much, and the fact that he had visions of what happened and not just simply the creative stuff, was interesting with that. I also like the idea of the dino mecha. I think it looks, seeing it in action, it looks actually really quite cool. Just because it's the dino mecha in a non-dino series, I'm not mad that we're doing another dino mecha. I think it looks cool. And I like what we found out also is that it used to be like the Royal Trade. So he stole the Royal Trade and customized it using his abilities to be this dark thing, which is really cool. I feel like it's pretty clear to me that crystal might be used to create that like jet-looking mecha that's going to go on the end of it to create the second mecha we just got scans of. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. And also, side note, even though this probably isn't going to turn into a Ranger, the purple-black color scheme lines it up perfectly for the idea of a black 6th Ranger or additional Ranger, where you have like the other Rangers, you know, they'll have their colored base and then they'll have the color of the gem. But this one could be a black colored base and then a purple gem. And that's an idea for a 6th Ranger for this. And then the white one, I've talked about this before, white, diamonds, crystals, you could have a white color base with like, you know, clear gems. And we're gonna go with silver, like a basic bench. But I feel like both of these options are open in this, and I don't think we'll ever get anything with it since this is clearly designed to be like the villain mecha or whatever. But I think that, now I was thinking like a black Kiramager with a secondary purple color. Not, that color's definitely been done before too, but that would be a better option, a cooler option than silver. I'm like getting away from myself, but I just happened to think of that in this episode when we have like the black, purple, and then the white color as options. With all of that. But I thought this was a strong episode, some good action, some good setting up of the status quo. It furthered a little bit of the plot with some of the mysteries a little bit. I would give this episode, I'm going to be generous today. I'm going to give it a 9 because there really wasn't too many nitpicks. Honestly, the only thing I can think to nitpick is that they did all of Kiramager when they have a Megazord formation where they could leave 2 out to go help, but the fact that they used the Gemini kind of fixed that anyway. Next week looks to be the debut of some of the auxiliary stuff and a yellow focus, which is fine. I was kind of hoping for pink. I'm hoping pink is the focus afterwards, mainly because even though yellow hasn't gotten a focus, because outside of red generally getting a focus, I feel like only green and blue have gotten focus episodes so far, but yellow's kind of been present, kind of filling that role of keeping red in check and always being on his case. So I feel like pink's the only one I don't have a full, I got a good feel for her character in the episode 0, but I feel like she's the only one that hasn't gotten more of a general feel for her character, so I'm hoping her focus is after that. Also, real quick at the end, I did want to just highlight, I think this was another strong episode for Juru as a leader. Again, actually showing that he was thinking rationally about helping her with the betrayal, and it wasn't just that classic idiot Sentai Red where they're like, I said a nonsense catchphrase, so I'm inspirational, I know stuff. It was actual level-headed thinking, and I've really been appreciating that so far. I'm not saying his annoying red antics aren't annoying when they happen, but it's nice that he's actually a calibrated, normal person that thinks level-headed and isn't just shouting a bunch of phrases at us. But anyway, that's it for this one, guys. Are you still enjoying the show? Let me know in the comments, as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.